What if everything you thought you knew about body fat was wrong? We tend to give our organs dynamic, active identities. The heart is a mechanical pump, the brain is a humming supercomputer, the lungs, a pair of bellows. But when it comes to body fat, we all share the same image, entirely passive. A pantry, a biological storage unit where we toss our extra calories. Maybe a stubborn winter coat we can't figure out how to take off. Historically, even the medical community viewed adipose tissue, the scientific term for fat, as essentially a roll of biological bubble wrap, just a burden to carry around, a layer of insulation, ultimately inactive. But what if that winter coat isn't just sitting there? What if, right now, as you're watching this, that supposedly passive tissue is actually one of the most active, communicative, and powerful organs in your entire body? Let's start by tearing down that pantry metaphor completely. Fat is an endocrine organ. The term endocrine means it actively manufactures and secretes chemical messengers into the bloodstream. We aren't just storing excess energy, we are operating a chemical factory. But fat is not a monolith. There are different types, and the differences between them are extraordinary. Then there is brown fat. If you look at it under a microscope, it literally appears brown, sometimes a dark brick red. The color comes from a massive density of mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. But the mitochondria in brown fat cells are extremely rich in iron, and that iron gives the tissue its dark pigment, almost like biological rust. And here's the fundamental difference. White fat stores energy, brown fat burns it. Its entire biological mandate is to generate heat. It doesn't want to hold on to calories at all. It wants to incinerate them to keep your core temperature up. It is an internal furnace. And then there is a third category, beige fat. Beige fat is essentially white fat that has been convinced to change its identity. Under certain environmental conditions, most prominently chronic cold exposure or specific types of physical stress, pockets of normal white fat can start developing those iron-rich mitochondria. They undergo a physical structural transformation to become brown-like. They transition from acting as storage units to acting as mini furnaces. So we have white fat for storage, brown fat for heat, and beige fat as an emergency backup heater we can build if conditions demand it. But the most critical distinction goes beyond color. It comes down to location. Visceral fat is the danger zone. Visceral fat packs itself deep inside your abdominal cavity. It wraps tightly around your internal organs, your liver, your intestines, your pancreas. And anatomically, it sits right next to the portal vein, a massive blood vessel that acts as a direct highway carrying blood straight to your liver. When visceral fat starts releasing its hormones, or worse, when it starts breaking down and leaking raw fatty acids, it dumps all of those chemicals straight into the portal vein. The liver gets hit with a massive, undiluted wave of fat and inflammatory signals. It completely overwhelms the liver's processing capacity, creating a domino effect of metabolic chaos throughout the entire body. Here's what makes this so important. Gaining weight isn't inherently the thing that makes you sick. The danger comes entirely from where your body decides to put that extra mass. Now let's zoom in on brown fat, because the communication networks this tissue uses are staggering. But modern imaging technology changed the narrative completely, specifically PET scans used in oncology. Radiologists were scanning adult patients to look for cancer metastasis using a radioactive glucose tracer, essentially glowing sugar, because tumors are metabolically active and suck up sugar, so they light up on the scan. But radiologists kept seeing strange, symmetrical areas lighting up around the collarbones, the neck, and down the spine of adults. After investigation, they realized they were looking at functional, highly active brown fat. We do not lose it entirely as we age. We keep small, localized patches of it, and it can be activated. So how does a brown fat cell actually turn a calorie into pure heat? But brown fat is not just a localized heater. It is plugged into the mainframe. When you eat a meal, your gut releases a specific chemical messenger into the bloodstream that travels directly to your brown fat. A priority alert, incoming calories. The brown fat receives that signal and turns its furnace on, immediately starting to burn off some of that incoming energy. But once activated, it sends a specialized nerve signal through the sensory nervous system, straight up the spinal cord, and directly into the brain. The message: the furnace is on. We are processing energy. You can feel full now. Brown fat is physically helping to control your appetite, a direct satiety signal. Now we need to talk about what happens when the entire system breaks down. But there is a strict biological limit to how fast the body can build new cells. If calories keep flooding in too fast, the tissue resorts to the second method, hypertrophy. Instead of building new cells, the body forces the existing fat cells to physically swell. They gorge themselves with incoming lipids, stretching their cell membranes larger and larger, like inflating a biological water balloon. And this is precisely where the danger begins. There is a hard physical limit to how large a biological cell can stretch. When fat cells swell to massive sizes, they outgrow their blood supply. A capillary network can only provide oxygen to a certain microscopic radius. When the fat cell inflates beyond that radius, the outer edges of the tissue are cut off from oxygen. They start to suffocate. The medical term is hypoxia. And without oxygen, these swollen fat cells begin to die. But the cleanup job is completely overwhelming. The immune cells become frustrated and angry. They start pumping out harsh, potent inflammatory chemicals, sounding the biological alarm bells. This creates a state of chronic low-grade inflammation that never turns off, humming in the background 24 hours a day. The fat tissue has become an active war zone. And when it stops listening, the toxic spill begins. The sick fat cells start leaking raw, unrefined fatty acids directly back into the bloodstream, an uncontrollable, continuous leak. That raw fat gets shoved into the liver, causing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It gets crammed into the skeletal muscles, where fatty acids act like physical sludge, gumming up the internal machinery and ruining the muscle cell's ability to process glucose. The muscles starve while blood sugar piles up dangerously. The true danger of obesity is not just carrying extra mass. It is walking around with an organ inside you that is suffocating, dying, inflamed, and actively leaking toxic sludge into your vital organs. It is a state of active tissue failure. This toxic spill doesn't stay localized, it circulates everywhere, and it creates the perfect storm for one of humanity's biggest killers, cancer. And then there is leptin. In a healthy metabolism, leptin is the master fullness hormone, secreted continuously by white fat cells, traveling to the brain, hitting specific receptors. The message: we have enough stored energy, stop eating, increase your metabolic rate. Beautiful, elegant appetite suppression. But all that ignored leptin is still biologically active everywhere else in the body. And tumors absolutely love it. Research has definitively shown that high levels of circulating leptin act as a powerful direct growth stimulant for certain cancer cells. Tumors actually mutate to develop their own leptin receptors, using the hormone to proliferate and spread more rapidly. Studies show a direct, frightening correlation between high circulating leptin and highly aggressive forms of breast and cervical cancers. The sick fat is inadvertently mass-producing the exact chemical nutrient the tumor craves most. So can you reverse the risk? The data strongly suggests yes. Let's bring this all together. The scale is a blunt instrument. It cannot tell you if your fat is safely stored subcutaneously or dangerously packed into your viscera. It cannot tell you if your fat cells are small, clean, and healthy, or swollen, suffocating, and inflamed. We need to shift our focus away from aesthetics and care deeply about metabolic health, keeping the tissue you have healthy, uninflamed, and responsive to insulin, respecting the organ rather than hating the mass. And here is the final thought to carry with you. Fat plasticity. Our fat is not a fixed, unchanging lump of clay. It is constantly turning over and remodeling itself. White storage fat can literally be convinced to change its identity, turning into brown-like beige fat in response to cold or stress. It can change its fundamental biological purpose from a storage unit into a furnace. It turns out that stubborn winter coat we have spent decades trying to take off might eventually be the very thing that saves us.